Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today by asking you to do just a really quick mental inventory. So imagine your brain is a web browser. How many tabs do you currently have open?
Oh, wow. If we're being completely honest,
Yeah.
probably enough to crash the entire system.
Right. Yeah, it's not just the work tabs either. It's the worrying about the economy tab, the did I say the wrong thing at dinner last night tab.
The endless news cycle tab.
Exactly. And just this constant low-level hum of the am I doing enough with my life tab. It feels like that spinning wheel of death is constantly just one click away.
It really is the defining cognitive state of the modern era, I mean. We are perpetually processing, perpetually notified, and just perpetually anxious that if we close a tab, we're going to miss something vital.
Yeah, we're terrified of closing them. And I think that is exactly why I'm so excited about the text we are unpacking today. We're looking at a source that, well, it claims to be the antidote to that specific kind of burnout. We're doing a deep dive into Psalm 131.
Which is, it's a really fascinating choice because on the surface, it almost seems too small to handle a problem that massive. I mean, it's only 3 verses long.
3 verses, you could literally read it in 15 seconds. But when I was, going through the research and the commentaries you sent over, I realized this thing is dense. It's like an espresso shot of spiritual theology.
That is a great way to put it, an espresso shot. But before we even look at the actual words, we have to look at the context because that completely changes everything. So this is written by King David, and it is technically classified as a Song of Ascents.
Right, a Song of Ascents. We see that label on a bunch of different psalms. Unpack that for us real quick. What does that actually mean for the person who is singing it?
So picture ancient Israel.
Mhm.
3 times a year, the Jewish people were expected to travel to Jerusalem for these major festivals. And Jerusalem is situated up on a mountain. So no matter where you are coming from, you are walking uphill.
So it's essentially a road trip playlist.
It is, yeah. But it's a really high-stakes road trip. This isn't, a paved highway with rest stops. This is a dangerous, dusty trek through bandit country. You are totally exposed to the elements, you're exhausted, and you're carrying all your supplies.
Wow, okay.
So these songs of ascents, they were designed to get your mind right before you arrived at the temple. They were songs of mental and spiritual preparation.
That adds so much texture to it for me because when I just read Psalm 131 on its own, it feels so quiet. But you're saying it was meant to be sung in the middle of intense physical exertion and potential danger.
Precisely. And that contrast is exactly what makes it so powerful.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the songs are loud, right? They're crying out for help or they're asking God to smash their enemies.
Lots of smash.
Lots of dramatic imagery.
Yeah.
But Psalm 131 is entirely unique.
Yeah.
It's a description of what the source calls a settled condition of the soul. It's about finding this internal quietness, even when your external journey is totally chaotic.
A settled condition of the soul. Man, that sounds almost impossible for us in 2026. But I guess that's our mission today. We want to figure out how to get from this noisy browser tab soul to a quieted soul. So let's just dive right into verse 1.
Let's do it.
So David starts with a confession. He says, Lord, my heart is not haughty, nor are mine eyes lofty. Now I gotta say, haughty and lofty sound a little bit like Downton Abbey dialogue to me. What is he actually describing here in plain terms?
It does sound a bit archaic, but the psychology behind it is incredibly modern. The source material explains that haughty here definitely refers to pride, but it's a very specific flavor of pride. It's not just walking around thinking you're the greatest. It's an ambition that is beyond one's place.
Beyond one's place.
Yeah. Think of it as this restless, gnawing desire for control or for recognition. But the phrase that really nails it for me is the second part, lofty eyes.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. What does having lofty eyes look like practically for you and me?
It means you are constantly scanning the room. You know that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking to someone, but you're looking right over their head to see if there is someone more important you should be talking to.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They're just constantly scanning for the next opportunity, the next rung on the corporate ladder. It is the fear of better options, but completely weaponized against your own peace.
Oof. That is deeply uncomfortably relatable. It's that exact feeling of, I can't just be present here because I might be missing something higher or better over there.
Exactly. It's a fundamental refusal to just be where you are because you've convinced yourself you deserve to be somewhere better. And David is starting this song by saying, I'm done with that. I am actively closing that tab.
But then he says something next that I think a lot of our listeners, especially because you guys are driven, ambitious people, are going to really struggle with.
Yeah.
David says, neither do I exercise myself in great matters or in things too high for me.
Right, great matter.
Here's my main issue with that. David is literally a king. He killed Goliath. He united the tribes of Israel. He built an entire empire. His entire life resume is defined by great matters. So is he just lying here? Or is the text telling us that to be truly spiritual, we have to just stop having goals entirely?
This is the major tension point of the whole text, isn't it? Because if you just read this superficially, it definitely sounds like an endorsement of mediocrity. Like, don't dream big, just stay in your lane.
Right. Keep your head down and don't try too hard.
But the scholars in the source material point out a crucial nuance here. This is not about the activity, it is about the burden. The original Hebrew phrase for exercise myself implies this frantic walking back and forth. It's a word about grasping.
Okay, so he's not saying I don't do my job.
Not at all. He is saying, I do my job, but I don't try to play God while doing it.
Hmm?
Think about the massive difference between your actual job description and carrying the weight of the entire world on your shoulders.
Yeah, that makes sense.
David had to govern a nation, yes. But he eventually realized that the ultimate outcome of the kingdom, the secret hearts of the people, the distant future of the nation, those were the things too high for him. Those things belonged exclusively to God.
Okay, that is a really critical distinction. It's the difference between doing the work in front of you and feeling like you have to control the universe to make that work succeed.
Exactly. It is fundamentally about boundaries. We live in a culture today that constantly tells you you can be anything, you can do anything, and honestly, you should have a public opinion on absolutely everything.
Yes, the pressure to have a take on every single news story.
And David is pushing back against that exact instinct. He's saying, actually, no. I am a human being. I have limits. And I am consciously choosing to live happily within those limits.
That concept of choosing really stood out in the notes, too. The source mentioned that humility is chosen, not forced.
That is the key to the whole first verse. David could have tried to control every little detail. He literally had the absolute power of a monarch to try. But he consciously decided to step back. He replaced comparison, looking at what every other king had, with contentment.
It kind of reminds me of that feeling when you finally admit aloud, I cannot fix this person, or I cannot force this massive project to work. It feels like defeat for about 2 seconds, but then it just feels like immense relief.
And that specific relief is the quietness he's talking about. And we really need to emphasize this, getting to that point of relief is not easy. It's an active struggle. And that leads us directly into the central metaphor of the entire psalm in verse 2.
Yes, the weaned child metaphor. This is the absolute core image of the text. He says, surely I have behaved and quieted myself as a child that is weaned of his mother. My soul is even as a weaned child.
We really need to slow down and unpack this because modern readers tend to romanticize this image. We just picture a cute sleeping baby in a mother's arms. But do you know what the actual process of weaning a child is like?
I mean, I don't have personal experience, but I assume it's not a picnic.
It is a battle. It's a biological and psychological battle. Think about it. You have a nursing infant. Their entire relationship with the mother up to that point is based entirely on immediate need.
Right.
It's, I'm hungry, I cry, you feed me. It is a completely transactional dynamic. The mother is simply the source of milk.
You exist strictly to keep me alive and comfortable?
Basically, yeah. But then comes the weaning process. The mother intentionally denies the milk. She says no.
And the child, predictably, does not take that well.
The child screams, they kick, they feel entirely rejected. In their tiny mind, they think the relationship is ending because the provision has stopped. It is a genuine crisis of faith for the baby. You used to give me exactly what I wanted when I wanted it, and now you won't. Do you even still love me?
Wow. That is a heavy, profound way to look at it. So when David says his soul is like a weaned child, he is saying he has already gone through that massive spiritual tantrum and has finally come out the other side.
Yes. He has learned an incredibly hard lesson. The source puts it beautifully. The nursing child wants the milk. But the weaned child has learned to want the mother.
Whoa. Okay, you have to say that again.
The nursing child wants the provision. The weaned child is satisfied with the presence. Picture a toddler sitting on their mom's lap after they've been weaned. They aren't eating. They aren't extracting anything from her. They're just resting against her chest. They are calm, not because they are getting fed, but purely because they trust her.
The notes from the research phrased it as, the soul has learned to rest without demanding.
It is the ultimate definition of spiritual maturity. Just think about how we normally pray. especially when things get stressful.
Oh, it's 100% a list of demands. God, fix this health issue. God, I really need money. God, please change my terrible boss.
Right, we are just screaming for milk.
Yeah.
And the source makes it clear there's nothing inherently wrong with asking God for what we need. But if that is the only way you know how to relate to God, if you only ever come to him when you need a fix or a favor, you are still operating as a nursing infant spiritually. You haven't actually learned to just be in his presence.
So, if we take this metaphor to its logical conclusion, God might actually actively withhold the milk, the easy answers, the quick fixes, the immediate promotions, specifically to teach us this lesson, to teach us that his presence is actually enough.
That is the direct implication, yes. The weaning process in our actual lives often looks exactly like unanswered prayers.
Yeah.
It looks like long seasons of waiting or things just fundamentally not going our way.
Yeah.
And it feels like total abandonment, just like it does for the baby. But the goal isn't to starve us. The goal is to mature us, to move us from a transactional vending machine relationship to a genuine trusting relationship.
That completely shifts the perspective on personal hardship. It's not God ignoring me. It might actually be God weaning me. He's trying to get me to stop obsessing over the blessings and start actually loving the blesser.
And that maturity is exactly where the quiet soul comes from. The quiet soul isn't empty. It is deeply satisfied. David is essentially saying, my soul is like a weaned child. I am not freaking out demanding things anymore. I'm just here, resting in the trust.
That is beautiful. It really is. But I do want to pivot here because we promised practical application, and we have to bring this down from the theological heights into the messy reality of the listener's life right now. We are living in 2026. The world is incredibly loud. If I just decide to sit quietly in my industry, I am going to get eaten alive.
And that's the ultimate fear, isn't it? That choosing quietness is choosing weakness.
Right. How does this passive weaned child energy survive in a hyper-competitive, haughty eyes economy?
Yeah. Well, let's look at the first modern application the source material highlights, which is resisting comparison culture. This ties directly back to those lofty eyes we talked about. Social media, LinkedIn, the 24-hour news cycle, it is all algorithmically engineered to give you lofty eyes. Its whole purpose is to make you look at what absolutely everyone else is doing and feel deeply inadequate.
It's an infinite, literal infinite scroll of great matters that I am currently not a part of.
Exactly. And the actionable advice derived from the text here is wonderfully blunt. Not every platform is ours to pursue.
Wow, that is really hard for modern professionals to hear. We feel like we absolutely need to be omnipresent to succeed.
But you literally can't be. You are a finite human being. The attempt to be omnipresent is the exact thing that leads to the burnout we started the show talking about. The spiritually weaned person knows their specific lane. They know exactly what God has given them the capacity and responsibility to do, and they're completely okay with missing out on the rest of it.
So it's basically embracing the joy of missing out JOMO instead of FOMO.
In a deep spiritual sense, yes. Real peace begins the exact moment comparison ends. If you are genuinely secure in your relationship with God, if you're that calm child sitting on the lap, you simply don't need to prove your worth by frantically chasing every new trend or arguing in every comment section.
But what about the anxiety of control? That's the other massive piece of this. You mentioned earlier that we constantly try to carry things that are too high for us.
This is a huge contributor to modern burnout. Because of technology, we are now constantly exposed to global tragedies, massive economic shifts, endless political drama, and we feel this heavy moral pressure to somehow solve it all, or at the very least, to worry about it efficiently.
Worrying efficiently, ouch.
I feel very seen right now. It's this twisted logic where I feel like if I just worry about a global crisis enough, I am somehow actively contributing to the solution. But you aren't. You are just exercising yourself in matters way too high for you. The quiet soul looks at the world and realizes, I am only responsible for my actions, my personal integrity, and my immediate physical sphere of influence. Everything else belongs to God.
See, to a lot of people, that just sounds like giving up, like apathy.
It's not giving up. It is accepting reality. You are not the CEO of the universe. Formally resigning from that imaginary position is the single healthiest emotional decision you can make.
And ironically, when you stop frantically trying to control everything, you probably actually become way more effective at the few things you actually can control.
Yes. This is the core paradox of quiet strength. You asked earlier if quietness equals weakness. The source material argues the exact opposite. It says calm is a sign of depth.
Go a little deeper on that concept.
Think about the leaders you actually respect and trust in your own life. In a real crisis, When the metaphorical building is on fire, do you follow the person who is running around screaming instructions, checking Twitter, and panicking?
No, absolutely not. I follow the person who is standing perfectly still, calmly assessing where the exits are.
Exactly. A settled heart is not easily provoked. The person who has actually quieted their soul is always the most powerful person in the room because they aren't reactive. They aren't easily baited into outrage.
Mm.
They possess this internal center of gravity that simply isn't dependent on the external chaos of the day.
That actually bridges perfectly to the very end of the psalm, because up until now, we've been talking strictly about the individual, my heart, my soul, my pride. But verse 3 takes this really hard turn outward toward the community.
It does. David wraps it up by saying, "Let Israel hope in the Lord from henceforth and forever."
He turns to the crowd.
He turns to the other pilgrims walking on the road with him. And this directly answers the ultimate so what question. Why does my personal internal quietness matter to anybody else? It matters because stability is contagious.
Stability is contagious. I really like that phrasing.
Just like panic is contagious. If you are constantly anxious, grasping for control, and comparing yourself to others, you make everyone around you anxious. Your family feels it, your team at work feels it, your friends feel it.
Yeah.
But if you are weaned, if you are genuinely settled, you become a safe harbor for those people.
So by doing the really hard internal work of weaning myself off of the need for control and the need for constant validation, I am actually actively serving my community.
You are modeling hope for them.
Yeah.
You are physically showing them that it is actually possible to walk through a highly dangerous, chaotic world without being entirely consumed by it. David ends the song by saying, "Hope in the Lord." He's essentially saying, look, guys, I've tried the ruthless ambition. I've tried micromanaging the empire, but I found something way better. I found true rest.
Mm.
And you can have it too.
It creates an entire culture of trust.
And that brings us right back to the core mission of this deep dive, strengthening our personal trust and relationship with God. Because this song isn't just some ancient self-help hack to lower your daily cortisol levels.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental theological shift.
It's shifting our entire definition of what spiritual maturity even looks like. Because I think we often assume the mature believer is the one doing the most stuff, the one leading all the committees, volunteering for every event, loudly debating theology online.
But Psalm 131 flips that entirely. It says the truly mature believer is the one who trusts God enough to simply stop striving. It forces us to ask ourselves a really piercing question. Do I fundamentally equate my ambition with my worth?
Wow, that hits home. If I am not out there actively achieving great matters, do I still matter?
And the weaned child knows the answer is a resounding yes. A mother doesn't love her child because the child is paying the mortgage or fixing the car. She loves the child simply because it is hers. When you really, truly grasp that, when you realize God loves you completely apart from your productivity or your utility, you can finally just exhale.
And that exhale is the quiet. It's the exhale of the soul.
It really is.
So let's just look at the full picture of the journey we've taken today. We started out with a brain full of open browser tabs, overwhelmed by the noise and the cultural pressure.
We started walking the road of ascent.
We looked at verse 1 and rejected the lofty eyes, the exhaustive need to constantly be better than everyone else. We rejected the crushing burden of great matters, the illusion that we need to control the outcome of the universe.
Then in verse 2, we confronted the painful process of weaning, learning the hard way to value God's presence far more than his presence.
And finally, in verse 3, we ended up becoming a source of contagious hope and stability for the people around us.
It really is a complete journey from haughty to hope.
I want to leave the listener with that visual of the ancient pilgrims one more time. I just think it's such a crucial image to hold on to. They are walking uphill. The road is dangerous. Their legs are burning. But inside they are completely at rest.
They have ascended internally long before they ever physically reach the top of the mountain.
If this discussion has sparked something in you today, if you're listening right now and realizing that maybe you are still exhausting yourself fighting for the milk and completely missing the mother, we want to help you take this further.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because this concept is something you have to actively practice. It's not just a switch you flip in your brain after one deep dive. It is a daily habit you have to build.
We have a whole community of people who are trying to apply this kind of practical wisdom to their real daily lives. And I would love for you to join us. You can support what we do and get access to much deeper resources by joining our mailing list. Just go to https.bit.b practical advice.
That's https.bit.gi practical advice.
We share extra thoughts there that just don't make it into the final cuts, and it's a really great way to keep this exact conversation going throughout your week.
And as we all try to close down some of those mental browser tabs today, we want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. The source material posed a question at the very end that I honestly haven't been able to shake all week.
Late on us.
What would it actually look like to rest in God's presence rather than constantly chasing outcomes?
Man, that changes the entire posture of your workday.
It does. And following right on the heels of that, how will you apply this information in your life today? Because just intellectually knowing about the concept of the weaned child is one thing. Actually becoming one when the pressure is on is another entirely.
Don't just analyze the menu, eat the meal. Or in this specific case, I guess, just rest in the present.
Exactly. Just rest.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today. We will see you on the next ascent.
See you then.